Hi, Trisha, welcome. And Sophia,
Hi, Whitney.
hi. Did I say your names right, or do you need to correct me?
You pronounced my name correctly.
Okay, super. Let me try and get my top angle camera that I'm going to use for the second half of the presentation logged into Zoom. I thought that I would see it already, but just got to check out it. Okay, so we'll wait a couple more minutes. I have to figure out how to turn off the audio on my phone, which is the upper camera, so I don't get this echo. Okay. I think I will try to mute that participant. Okay, that should work. We'll wait about 2 or 3 more minutes to see if some more people come in. But while we're waiting, if you guys want to turn on your videos for a few minutes, you could introduce yourselves, say what program or work position you're in, and share with us. Hi.
Hello, my name's Sue, and I work at the libraries and at the Office of Advanced Research Computing. So,
okay. Thank you, Sue.
And I got the invite through Kayo, I think. So.
Okay, super.
Hi, my name is Trishni, and I work as a postdoc in the Division of Population Science at Rutgers Cancer Institute.
Super, welcome.
Sophia.
Yeah, Sophia, are you here?
Hi, I work, oh, fuck. I'm a student at Rutgers, sorry.
Awesome.
And I think that's me. I have to put my camera on. I look pretty disheveled. Sorry for the look. I'm not camera ready, but I am a colleague of Whitney, and I also work in the libraries like Sue.
Wonderful. And then you can see that the 6th attendee is the upper camera. So just in case you're wondering how that situation is happening, I will just show you guys the contraption I rigged. So here in my bedroom, we've got some extra lighting over here. And then my phone is in this little basket created out of an old Wheat Thins box, and it is attached to the fan. So later when we get to the demonstration, I'll be using that. And there's a lot of other cords because I needed to have my phone connected to a power source, because when I was doing a practice of this, Zoom eats up a lot of battery power on mobile devices, and it wouldn't have lasted the whole time. So that's just a little explanation of that piece. So we'll start with a presentation that I put together that's a slideshow presentation. If you want to leave your videos on, you can, but during that part, feel free to turn them off if you'd like to. And we'll get into a live demonstration at the second third of the presentation. And then at the end, we'll do discussion. And then anyone that wants to stay on after 8 can stay on and do the craft project that I'll be doing the demo of. And you can share your screen so I can see what you're doing on Google Street View and give you some advice on how to do your drawing. So that's kind of the lay of the land. I think we'll get started, and if other people join along the way, that's great. I think that maybe because I sent out the email saying the presentation was going to be recorded, might have been a little less pressure to attend in person, but hopefully the other people that registered can enjoy after the fact. And you can share this presentation recording with colleagues, whoever might be interested afterwards. I'll make sure everybody gets the link to the video after I post
Excuse me, Whitney, there was somebody who just registered at 6 o'clock. Did you have a chance to send this individual the link?
Let me see. Kaya, do you think they registered through LibCal?
Yeah, they did.
Okay. And I do not think I sent them the link because I did not see that notification on 6 o'clock.
We'll send her the recording.
Well, I could send her the meeting registration link to do that so that if she really wants to join and she's waiting, she can still get in. Okay. Just bear with me for one more moment. Is there an echo still happening, or is it all okay for you guys?
It's okay for me.
Okay.
It's okay on my end.
Okay, great.
I can hear you as well.
Okay,
Good.
Thank you. Okay. Oh. Yes. Maybe this is taking longer than I thought it would to find the thing, but almost there. Just give me one more moment. Okay. That should take care of that. Okay, now I'm going to start our presentation. Let me share my screen. Okay, so here we are. The title of this workshop is Exploring Google Street View, Learn Landscape Drawing with Virtual Mediation and Metadata. And my name is Whitney, and I'm the graduate specialist for the Margery Somers Foster Center, which is a unit of the Rutgers University Libraries. So first we're going to talk about why we're doing this project. Then I'm going to go through the different features and functions of Google Maps. I'll actually be on Google Maps and showing you guys some of the different items that you can toggle between and things to look for when you're using it. Then I'll talk about supplies that you will need to do the art project, the drawing, using the Google Maps Street View as inspiration. I'll talk about some of the different variations that you could do to the project to give it your own flair. And then I'll do a live drawing demonstration. Then we'll get into a discussion about different uses for Street View and implications of the platform and its different uses. And then at the end, you'll have a chance to try your own and stay on the call if you'd like to do that today. But if you do end up not staying on the call to do drawing and you do the drawing at a later date, I would really love it if you emailed me a picture of what you did, just so I could see how it went. And if you feel comfortable with it being shared with other people, note that in the email. And I'd love to, post those pictures on the Margery Somers Foster blog or on our Facebook page. But if nothing else, if you do try it, please share with me so that I can just experience it, and I'd be very happy for that. Okay, so why we're doing this project? Why use Google Street View to do a landscape drawing? So in the history of landscape drawing, there are in plein air landscape painters and drawers who would actually go out to the physical location that they wanted to make an artwork of and do their artwork on site. And plein air means outdoors in French. Then there's also the option of people doing landscape portraits and drawings of places they've never been that are either from their imagination or based on a resource that they're using as inspiration. So we're using Google Street View because it's free, it's flexible, and you can see places all over the world that you might not ever be able to visit in person. So it gives a lot of people a lot of great options to do landscape drawings based on locations that they're seeing an image of it for the inspiration, even if they can't go there themselves or they can't acquire an image from some other place. They can't find one online that is a fair representation of what they're trying to get at, or can't find something in an archive, or maybe just no photos exist of it outside of captures that might be in Google Street View. So Google Street View was introduced in 2007, and it was just in a handful of big US cities, including LA, Chicago, and New York City. But then it's really expanded from there, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But the other more theoretical reason that we're doing this project, other than just the practical resource of Google Street View being so openly available, is that I want you guys to think about the distortions and blockages in reality that occur in the process of capturing and the act of viewing digitally mediated landscapes. So again, on the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about the history of Google Maps and or Google Street View, and I'll talk about how those images come to be. But remember during that it's not a 100% accurate representation of the reality that you would see if you were in the place where those images were captured. And there's this funny type of thing with Google Street View where as you use the little slider and go further down the road, the other objects that are in the photo, the non-stagnant ones, so beyond the buildings and the landscaping and the roads, the movable things are different from scene to scene, even if you're looking at the exact same place sometimes, because there are moving cars and people and animals and clouds and other things like that that change what you're seeing and how you're seeing it. And sometimes it might block things, and just keep that in mind as we do some of the viewing. And then also I thought that this would be a fun project to do during this time of the global health pandemic, because we're really limited, or people are limited in different ways to different extents, but most people are limited, at least in some capacity, of where they can go in the world right now with the different lockdowns and personal decisions to restrict where you're traveling to because of the risks involved with health. Can be very discouraging and limiting, but I thought that doing this project would allow people to see places that they're interested in seeing and really spend some time with that scene and to create almost a memorial type of artwork of somewhere that you have been that you miss, or perhaps somewhere that you want to visit and maybe would have visited this year but couldn't. Or it could just be, you know, for your drawing somewhere absolutely random that you have no sentimental attachment or longing for. But I think that it would be interesting to do places that are meaningful that we're restricted access to because of the pandemic. Okay. So like I said, Google Street View began in 2007, and it now has Street View captures on all 7 continents. So there's definitely less coverage in particular countries and in more rural areas, but it really has crisscrossed the globe quite a bit. And it's this Google Images. Can you guys see my little black mouse cursor when I hover over the presentation, or can you not see it?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, so yes, here is one of the Google Street View cars that's got this apparatus on top, and it's got a lot of sensors on it because it's sending out little laser signals to how far away different objects are from the car, so that when it weaves together panoramic photos to blend them, and stitching is what they call it at Google. When they stitch together the different photos, they want to know how those different photos are supposed to interact. And so there's a lot of tracking about the speed of the car and the distance between objects and the car, so that they can try and get those pictures to line up through the stitching. And then after they're done with the stitching, the photos go through a smoothing process with a special image processing algorithm. And I am not technically savvy enough to know anything about how that works, but I think they do a pretty good job based on my experience with Google Street View and how seamlessly a lot of the photos come together. And then above the car photo, these are the more recent pieces of equipment that they're using to get Google Street View captures. So that blue one that looks like, well, I don't even know what it looks like, but maybe a backpack. That's what it's supposed to be. It is a backpack. It's called the Trekker, and people can wear that to get captures. They don't just hand them out to the public. It's Google officials who would be using them, but they've gotten some pretty cool places that are definitely far off roads, including in the Rocky Mountains and in the Grand Canyon, using that on the back of a person backpack. And then you'll see the snowmobile and a little three-wheeler scooter thing that could go through narrow places in cities, and the snowmobile obviously for snow. And then this guy on the right is called the trolley, and the trolley can go in buildings if the building, managers and owners have been approached by the Google representatives and have agreed to it. And one of the really cool projects that's been done, and it's continuing to happen with the trolleys, is that Google Street View now has Street View within a bunch of museums. So let me see. Yeah, I'm going to show you guys one of those incidences of Street View existing within a museum. So this is the Palace of Versailles in France, a very important French museum to the French people, and with some masterpieces from countless other countries as well. And here we have it on Google Maps. So there's the general surrounding of the building. And then you can see these yellow roads and the white roads. Those are usually the types of places where once you're in Google Maps, in order to get to a street view, you can take this little yellow guide here in the corner. And once you start dragging him over the map, you'll see all these blue lines appear. And the blue lines are the pathways of where the captures have happened. So you can drop your little guy onto any of those blue lines, and that's where the view will appear. I'm gonna put it back for a sec. Well, actually, I'll leave it out there. But you'll see also these little blue dots, and those are user submitted 360-degree photos. So in city centers and at attractions and museums, in places where a lot of people from the public are going in and out of, you'll see a heavy density of blue dots. I would challenge you to go to Google Maps Times Square. You can do it right now if you want to put the meeting in like a small window and open up Google Maps yourselves, or you could try it later. But I challenge you to try and get onto one of the actual roads surrounding Times Square. Because when you try to drop your little yellow guy there, there's so many user submitted photos that the sensitivity isn't, like perfect. And so it will accidentally cling you to one of the dots. But I'm gonna put him back for a second so I can go back over here to the actual building. And the light yellow is the building in this case of the Palace of Versailles. So I'm gonna take him over there, and you'll see that there's blue trails actually in the building. So that's where the trolley went, because the blue lines are where the Google collected captures came from, and the dots are user submitted. So I'm gonna drop him in there. And then you can see the trolley and its operator in this mirror. So this is the Oh, I thought we were in the Hall of Mirrors. Maybe we're not. No, we're just in a chamber within the Palace of Versailles. But if you tap in the middle of the screen in the direction that you want to move, it will move you around. And if you keep going through different rooms, you'll find that it's actually quite a bit like a maze when you're doing some of these interior Google Street View explorations. So that is an example of Street View with the trolley captures in museums. And if you want to go back and look at more museums that have those types of captures, afterwards you can click on this link, and it talks about a couple of different national museums in the world that the trolley has been used in. But the article's a little outdated. I don't know which ones have been added most recently. I think it was 2013 that this was written. So that's another challenge. You can see how many museums you can find that have these captures in them, and then you can explore them. So we talked about the capture process. Okay, let's go through. Okay, so I just showed you guys the little yellow guy, and that is the beginning of how you use Street View. But now when I go back to Street View, I'm going to show you how you can type in an address and then just get a Street View directly of that place if it's been captured by searching. And I will show you the time machine function. So the time machine is where certain locations have been captured more than once through Google, and it's across different years. So I'm going to show you that. And then if you want some more information about like the process of Google Street View's development and the way the photos are stitched together, and if you want to look at a map of where in the world the captures have been taken, then you can try this link afterwards. I will go here for a moment before we get back onto the physical map to just show you that they also notify everyone who looks at this website, that is, where they're capturing next. So from July of 2020 to December of 2020, these counties in California are the ones that were scheduled to be captured. And I was hoping that there would be like a notice of some sort about the impact of, you know, the wildfires and stuff like that on their plans to do these captures. But they just say because of factors outside our control. And I'm not sure if this disclaimer has always been there or if it was added this year because of the different fires that are happening in California. But it should be interesting to see if this time gets extended for their intended captures in these places. And then if you go a little further down, this map shows you where Google Street View has been. So on Google Maps, you usually have to drag the yellow guy over the map to see those blue pathways of the captures. Let's go over here. Once you zoom in, it gets to a more granular level of detail the closer you get, where it looked like it was like this whole area was captured. When we were further out, it was just showing the boundaries basically of where the captures have happened. And then you could keep going in. And in this case, it looks like they didn't really go on any of the small roads around these different locations. They were just on the highway, but we can check it out for a sec. Oh, I guess, yeah. So I thought in my mind that that was going to be a highway, and it's a 2-lane road. So, you know, you can really challenge your expectations with exploring different places that you've never been before using Street View. And then here's a good example of what I was talking about blockages. Let's say, you know, a certain business wanted to promote themselves using Google, and they wanted the front of their restaurant or, you know, their other place of business to be visible on Street View so that people could just explore the neighborhood around their business before going there. But maybe there's a bus in the way of the front in the capture or something like that. And then this is a good time to note that you'll see that faces are always blurred out in Google Street View, as are license plates. So that's what they do for privacy. But you'll see that there are definitely tons of people, and their environments very clearly depicted, other than the fact that there's a little bit of face blurring and whatnot. Okay, so I'm gonna go back over to Street View, to Google Maps, and now I'm gonna show you a Street View that has the time machine function. So for me, what I really like about Street View is exploring places that are familiar to me and looking at them in different ways. So I'm going to go to the house that I lived in before I moved to New Jersey. It's right next to my parents' dairy farm where I grew up. And I lived here for 2 years in between when I graduated from undergraduate college and when I came to New Jersey to go to Rutgers. And so this is the house right here. And I just think this is a really fun example of the time machine, because right now in this capture, things that I notice, first of all, are that there's a tan truck in the driveway and a just married sign. You can barely read that. I know what it says, so that's why I could tell automatically. But this is from when I lived with one of my friends from high school. She was my roommate for a couple of years, and she had just gotten married. Well, her husband was also living with us. It wasn't just her that was my roommate, but they moved in with me, and they just lived there for a few months while they were looking for their own house to buy. And so even though it was a very short period of time in my eyes that I lived with her, it's memorialized and captured because of these items that are identifiers for her in this image. And then I also noticed the mailbox that I painted, which is red with white polka dots, and which is no longer there since the most recent tenant moved in. The back of it was rusting out. He replaced the mailbox. And so the next time that this house is captured, it's going to have a lot of other little clues about its inhabitants on it. And you can see down here that the image capture was made in August 2018. And there's the copyright information. So we'll talk about it a little bit more in terms of permissions, but when you use Google Maps and Google Street View, if you're embedding these captures and images and maps into something that you're doing online, then their copyright information is baked right into it, and you can use it in a number of fair use purposes. What we're doing with drawing falls under fair use. We're not using captures of it that were like screenshotting or something for a commercial purpose. I'm getting off topic though. I wanted to talk about the time machine function. So up here, you'll see that the address has this little clock and the word Street View next to it. Not every capture has a time machine, because not every capture has been captured in that same location more than once. This one, however, has had a few times that it was captured. So when you click on the clock, you'll get this little timeline down here, and the dot on the right is close to 2018, which signifies that that was the most recent time that it was captured. And then we've also got 2007 is the beginning date for this one. And then there's 2 more intermediaries. We've got a September 2008 and a September 2011. And if you want to look at the capture more carefully, then you can click on this image. So I'll do this 2011 one. And does anyone notice some significant changes in this capture compared to the first one?
The mailbox is black.
What's that?
The mailbox is black.
Yes, the mailbox is black, right? What else do you see?
But there are 2 vehicles on the.
Yep, we've got a black pickup truck instead of a tan one, and we've got a trailer this time.
The tree on the left has changed greatly.
What did you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. The tree, the planting to the left of the pine.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
This tree?
Yeah.
Yes, that is a great observation. So it was not too long before 2011. I can't remember the exact date, but there used to be, when I was a little kid, 2 matching trees here. There was another tall pine right here, And the one on the left side was dying. And when my father and uncle cut it down, they found this tree growing up inside of it, and it was like wrapping around the trunk of the old pine that was there. And my dad talks about when my great-grandparents are the ones who built this house, and they built it in the 1960s, and they planted tons of trees. Before this house was here, there were no trees in this area. It was farmland, and you'll see how well established all of these trees are. But if we could go back to the 1960s, if there had been Google Street View and captures then, the landscape would look exceedingly different. We don't have very many pictures of this home around the time that it was built, but the trees would have been all very different. Great observation about this one changing though, compared to, let's switch it back to this.
There's one comment on chat, Whitney.
Oh, in chat, okay.
And interestingly, the I didn't notice the windmills before. I think it's just the trees were slightly lower in the earlier shot.
Well, actually, those windmills, they were built in the early 2010s, but I don't remember what year exactly. They were not always there. Let's flip this around. This is going to be really obvious. So
Okay.
This is the north end of a wind farm in the town of Sheldon, and this is one of the furthest north ones. But if we look this way, you can see a significant number of the 80-some that are in the town. And so in 2011, it looks like they were there. Okay, let me see if I can get back to the 2007. I don't know where it went. So that's the thing about using these tools. They're free, but they're not perfect, as no tool is perfect. And now I can't seem to see that 2007 one that I thought I saw there before.
Is it because you're facing the other, like it doesn't exist? Oh, I see.
Maybe. Let me like refresh the map and its hold on this location. Let's see if that helps. Okay.
In case you're wondering where this house is, this area is near Buffalo, New York, where Whitney is from.
Yes. Yep. So it's in this map, Buffalo is in that direction, about 30 miles away. So it's, if you went in that direction, it would be northwest from this area. And here we've got the 2007. So this is good. Oh yeah, 2007, the windmills were not there yet. So I think it was maybe 2009 or 10 that they were built, but they weren't there in 2007. And they're 400 feet tall, so we're definitely not missing them. One last thing to look at and notice between these houses is that in this one, in the earlier ones, it's mint green above the rock work. Oh, and there we see the old pine tree. And I really don't have an explanation for you as to why this little timeline at the bottom keeps giving different values on it. It's very mysterious, but there we are. Oh, okay, so we're at the mint green. I want the most recent one now. Yep, it's not letting me, so we're just gonna refresh it again. It's like that turn it off and turn it back on again type of thing that people say that you should do with the printer or something if it has issues. But okay, here is the more recent one, the 2018. In this one, you'll see that the house is like a tan light brown color instead of the green. So as Google Street View accumulates more captures over the span of hopefully decades, it could be really interesting for things like historic preservation to see how houses and other buildings existed at certain points in time, what the landscaping was like, you know, what types of vehicles people were driving in that area at that time, things like that. So,
well, in this little example from 2007 to 2010 or 11, I think, we saw this area that didn't have any windmills, right?
yes.
It has like an enormous farm of wind harvesting. So
yes.
it's a huge transformation for the area, I would imagine.
Yes, it definitely is. And for me, seeing it without the windmills brings up a lot of memories of town hall meetings that I heard about. I was in school at the time, and so I wasn't yet in adulthood. I wasn't attending town hall meetings, but a lot of people were talking about it, and a lot of people were upset that the windmills were coming to the town and were protesting it. And it took a few years of public hearings and different zoning, law changes really to make these windmills become a possibility. And in the end, the property of the people who the windmills lease the property from, they get rent money from it, and then the town also gets payments annually from the windmill company, which they across the board take off from everyone's taxes, not just the people whose property the windmills are on. So that's just a little backstory. But let me get back to the presentation now that you've seen the functionality of Google Maps. Oh, actually, I'll go back for a moment and just tell you a couple other little technical things. So I am using a touch screen, but if you were not using touchscreen, if you have a mouse, you're going to click and hold and then move your mouse as you want to turn around the capture. And then if you want to move down a road, if you tap kind of right in front of you, so to speak, like at a close distance, it will just move you a little bit along the map. And you'll see these arrows show the different directions that you can go in. If you were at an intersection where you couldn't go down one road because that road hadn't been captured, you would notice possibly that there's not an arrow. But if you want to go really far down the road, then you kind of put your mouse towards the distance and tap in that far space, and it will really shoot you far away. So that's the house where we were just in front of, and it shot us, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile, a few hundred yards. I can't estimate the difference with much accuracy. But yeah, you can tap in the distance. And then if you would like to zoom in on a house to see greater detail, then you're going to use that little scrolly wheel on your mouse, or if you have a touch screen, use 2 fingers to spread your fingers apart and zoom in. So that is just some more technical know-how on how to use it. And let's keep going. Okay, so now I have a question for you guys to answer, and I would like to have you turn your mics on and tell me, what is metadata? Maybe the librarians should hold off answering first.
Will do.
Okay, whoops. Oh no, here we go.
Data about data.
Do either of you want to tell us what you think metadata is?
Yeah, she said data about data.
Oh, data about data. Yes, exactly. Perfect. Yep, so data about data. So metadata, a little bit of a longer explanation, is that it's structured information that describes an information resource or object. So in the case of the Google Street View, when we saw the copyright information in the bottom corner, and there was a little map that shows where you are on the map compared to the surrounding area, that's all information about the capture that you're looking at. And there was also some, like I said, the arrows on that street. So those are a type of metadata that indicate to you which direction the capture can go in. And then also street names. Let me go back to the map for a minute. I don't know if you guys noticed that there's this Big Tree Road text on the road, and it's not painted there, it's overlain on the map so that you can understand where on the map you are. And this was the little map I was talking about that shows the surrounding area. So in the case of cities where there might be more captures in a densely populated area and a lot of intersections, you'd be able to see which other areas you could explore in the vicinity that also have captures, because they would have those blue lines on them. And then up here, you have a new address appearing every time you move the map. So that is data about this capture, it's the address of where it is taken. There's some other nice windmill shots. And I have this little screenshot here of a little YouTube video tutorial about putting Street View APIs into your own website, probably for business purposes, but maybe for a hobby or a school activity or something. And you'll notice down here that there are things that say set all gestures enabled, navigation links hidden, street names hidden. And so if you didn't want to clutter up your use of embedding the Street View, you can turn off those street names that I showed you and those arrow links so that people can't see them when they're using your version that you get through an API. All right, let's see. I'm just gonna breeze through these real quick so that we can get to the demo soon. But here are just a few other examples of Street View being used for artistic reasons. So this picture on the left is my partner, Eddie, and this capture was done last summer, and he's giving a thumbs up in it. So that's a very subtle little gesture where he did that because he saw the Google Street View car. He changed his behavior and did an action because of his knowledge of what that car meant and that it was going to be creating something, a capture that would be visible online to anyone who so chooses to find it. And then there's more dramatic living pictures, tableau vivant, where people are acting things out a little bit to a more of an extreme because they saw a Google Street car coming down the road and knew it was going to capture something. So if you want to read more about this story, about a fake murder in Edinburgh, then you can click on this link afterwards. So those are just people creating artistic expressions through the capturing process. And then here's some art that is inspired by those captures. So this man, Bill Guffey, is an artist who looks at pictures that are available in Street View. As you can see back here, here's his computer, and there seems to be a boat in a channel of water. And then here's his painting of that scene. So he's using these captures for painting. And then this photographer, her art is taking screenshots, or her photography is taking screenshots of Google Street View. And I was very curious about how that worked in terms of the permissions, because she's not retaining that Google, copyright 2020 little writing down in the bottom right corner that is there when you're actually looking at the captures on the web. And so I discovered through a little bit of background research that she's not selling these for commercial profit unless she actually has gotten special permission to sell some of them. Google gave her permission, and she's donating the funds that she raised to a charity organization. But I think this is a very uncommon type of situation of an artist being able to use the raw photography and actually sell it. And I could not find any information on Google and their multiple pages of documentation on the web about asking for that type of permission. They really stress that if you want to use it for commercial purposes, you have to use their baked-in copyright information and have that visible and not edit it out, as is the case here, or you can use it for personal and education purposes that fall under fair use. So fair use is identified by these factors. So fair use is the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of a commercial nature or is for nonprofit educational purposes. So for copyrighted materials, people are able to do a lot more with them if it's for educational purposes as opposed to commercial. Then there's also the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. In this case, the copyrighted work as a whole would be all of the captures of Street View. They're a contiguous, well, some of them might be separated, but it's a contiguous unit. Those captures are all part of Google Street View. It's not a capture of this city is separate from one of this city. They're integrated into the same system. So if you're using a very small amount, say just one screen capture of it, then there's a potential backing for that being fair use. But all of these conditions are really up to if you would get challenged in court over your use and how a judge would decide if it was fair use or not. And then there's also the effect of the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. So if some people are taking some screenshots of Google Street View and using them on a t-shirt here and there for their friends that maybe they sold or something like that, then it's not a huge market and it might have a better excuse than say someone selling something using captures on a mass scale or something. But each case of use would be individual and had to be taken at different interpretations by a lawyer and by a court, etc. And if you guys want to learn about using the Google Maps APIs and how to embed those, then you can look at this link after the presentation. Okay, now we're going to get into the actual crafting part or drawing part. So if you're doing this kind of at the same time as me or after the fact, these are the supplies that you will need: paper, pencil. I would recommend a black Sharpie marker, but any type of marker will do. And then some coloring tools. You could use colored pencils or crayons, markers, watercolor paints. And if you're a really exacting person, you might want a ruler, but I would recommend not using a ruler because when you're doing this type of drawing, you could get really caught up on the details. And as I'm going to show you, I want you to look at the big picture at first and then go into further detail the longer you spend on the drawing. And if you start off with a ruler, you might be tempted to make every little detail perfect and you won't get very far with your drawing because it might take so long that you would give up or something. Hopefully you wouldn't. And if you want to be really exacting and use a ruler, go for it. I would love to see some pictures after the fact that you could email to me. And then for project variations, what I'm going to show you is just going to be a single frame drawing based off of a screenshot from Street View. But if you wanted to do a mashup, this is a fun idea for a building that has a lot of blockages in front of it in terms of maybe vehicles or trees or other types of obstacles that I'm not thinking of right now. But if you can't see what you're trying to draw and the address that you definitely want to do a drawing of from one angle, you could slide down the road and maybe get some different angles of it and then put those different angles next to each other or in a grid to get a more full representation of what that place looks like. And as you go and do your own drawing, you're going to want to think about before you start, what are you including and what are you not including? So the premise is that you will draw one building. And if you want to include things like metadata or some of the objects that are blockages to that building, then that's great. So things like that could be street signs, trees, vehicles, people, and all the different types of metadata that I talked about that are visible on the screen when you're in Street View. So here is an example of one that I did this summer. This is the Mabel Smith Douglas Library at Rutgers University on Chapel Drive, which is on the Douglas campus in New Brunswick. And so the drawing I did first in pencil, and then I realized, oh, let me show which lines I did first. So just those ones are covered with black marker right now. And the way to start these drawings is going to be by looking at the longest lines in the frame. So in this case, the roof of the building and the sidewalk, and then some of these tree outlines where there's high contrast between the tree and the sky, those are good places to start just to get the proportions of the overall scene set. So you're going to start big and just do those major lines and then go back in and work in detail in between them. But if you start down here, if you just started drawing this traffic cone and this bicycle, all of a sudden they might be taking up like this much of your page of paper, and could paste or tape more paper onto the edges if you started making your drawing bigger than you wanted to. But if you want to fit just one screen capture on one piece of paper, I would recommend starting with those longest lines first. And then this is where I took the black Sharpie marker and went over all of the lines from the first one, and then went back through and erased the pencil marks that were next to some of those marker lines where I hadn't done an exact job of covering them up. So erase those. And then this one has some colored pencil added to it. So in this one, I chose to include all of the metadata that was available in the capture. So down here, we've got our little compass. These plus and minus buttons are another way to zoom in and out on the building, other than how I explained using the rolling wheel on your mouse or using 2 fingers if you have a touch screen. And then I really like how Chapel Drive is kind of smushed and you can barely read it, but that was the overlay that's part of the metadata from Google. And down here you can see in the little map that shows the surrounding area, it says George Street. Okay, that makes sense because I know that George Street is right by the library, but then there's some other little clues that are very partial and give you a sense of what else is in the area. So there are some other tagged locations other than the library on this map that would just show up if we looked at the map, including a counseling and what? Some sort of center, some counseling center, and then transportation services. The Rutgers Transportation Services building is about half a mile away in this direction from the library. So those are just some little metadata clues. If you were going to do a mashup, I would recommend setting up your composition in a web format before you get going with your drawing, just so you can get your layout kind of set. So in this case, this is an example of I used Google Slides. On Google Slides, you can go to the formatting options. I know that's fuzzy, but it says formatting options of the image, and then under adjustments, you can increase the transparency. So that's what I did for this image, because this image is an aerial view from Google Maps, not the street view, that shows this home from above. And to me, when I visited this home when I was a child, it was a friend's house. I remember this intersection a lot because it's a very dangerous intersection and people died there over the years. And there's a cemetery across the way that I was always creeped out about. So these trees are blocking the view of the house, but here are 2 captures of the house from different angles. But I thought that this intersection was interesting enough to include in this mashup of the drawing. So this is the drawing, and this one I chose to just do black and white. I wasn't as invested in this one as the library drawing. And so that's the thing, you can do this project to whatever extent satisfies you. If you just want to do a drawing in pencil and leave it at that, great. I personally think it looks 10 times better if you just go over your pencil lines with black marker afterwards, so that it increases the contrast and you can really see these different shapes and how they are arranged together. But there's the before with screenshots from Street View, and then there's the after. So we've kind of got these different angles of the same house and this overhead, and then the cemetery over here. So to me, doing the mashup like this is a little bit more surreal and a little bit more playful than just doing the straight up drawing, including the metadata. So figure out which type of direction you want to go in for yours. Okay, now I'm going to do the demonstration, though I need to stop sharing. Okay. Can you guys, in the top right corner of your Zoom, there's a little button that says speaker view or gallery view, one or the other. So I want you to go to speaker view and then tap upper camera, so that, and up in the upper camera, there's a little thumbtack icon after you hover over it in the top left corner of that box. So tap that upper corner, get the thumbtack, and so now you should see that upper camera angle as the primary video stream. Does anyone not see that or have a hard time getting it set up?
No, it's good. You
Okay.
can also, I think you can also double click too.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sue. Okay. So for this one, I'm just going to show you the beginning of the drawing. I'm not going to do a whole one right now because there were already some examples in the presentation and I want to have enough time for some conversation, but I'm going to do one for Google Street View of my current home. So let me pull that up on my map real quick. Okay. Okay, we've got a little bit of an inception situation going on here. Okay, can you guys see that house now?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, great. So for this house, this is a house that I live in, and this is a pretty clear shot of it. The house is on a corner, there's no big trees in front of it. So I've got some different options for the angle that I want to go at it from. I could do it from this angle, but the shrubs are kind of blocking it. Or we could go over here around the corner. And this really shows that the house goes a lot deeper than it might look like from the front side. But what I am most interested in is the little things, the little details in these screen captures that just make it so obvious that it's a mediated experience of viewing this house. It's not like I'm just walking around the building because the view is different everywhere I go. This mail truck was not there from the view that I had when I was over on this Wilcox Street. This is where the mail truck was before, and you can see little oil spots. But when I'm on Beryl Street, this side street, I see the mail truck, and I like the mail truck. I think it's funny because there is always a mail truck parked outside of my house. That's where they park every day as they walk their perimeter of my neighborhood. And I specifically leave a parking space available at this corner for the truck. Sometimes I think, oh, I'll park in that spot. I'm like, oh, if I park there, the mail truck's not gonna have anywhere to go. So I like the mail truck. It's special to me in terms of remembering this home, which I probably will not always live in. I rent it right now, and I want the mail truck in it. So this capture from here on Beryl Street has it. So this is my point of view, like across the intersection, but I don't want all this other stuff depicted. So I'm gonna zoom in so that I just kind of have this tree and the mail truck and the house. I also really like how the street sign is in there, and I'm going to include that in the drawing. But what I'm going to leave out is this house next door to it. I do know the people that live there. They're very sweet, but that's not the focus of this drawing. The focus of this drawing is for this home with the mail truck. So for the actual drawing, I'm going to turn my laptop now so that I can see it more clearly, but can you guys still see the paper just fine?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to draw from this direction and then I might turn it for you. So I'm just gonna show you the quick beginning steps of it. So for me, the most obvious line in this image is of the roof, and then this triangle above the front door, and the chimney, and then also the general outline of this truck, which is kind of a rectangle top, and then it slopes downwards, and then it's got this boxy bottom. And then I also notice the general shape of the tree, kind of looks like a triangle with a stick coming out the bottom. And then the sidewalks, well, oh no. So usually I would take a screenshot and I wouldn't be on the physical map during this, because as you can see, when you're zooming in, you're gonna get stuck to all these different places. I don't even know where I am anymore. I'm gonna tap on this image. Since I had typed in the address, it has the street view for that address here on this left sidebar, so that's a quick and easy way to get back to it. Okay, so I'm zooming in, and I am gonna take a screenshot. And I'm gonna open that screenshot so that it doesn't start moving around again. Okay. All right, so for the drawing, I'm going to do the roof line, and this is just really quick. The chimney goes up above the roof and then over, and it also goes down past the top of where the roof hits. And then there's this little pipes situation, double knobs at the top of the chimney in a little box. And then I'm gonna do from the corner of the roof, it goes down and then over a little bit, and then we get this big triangle above the front door, which goes down further on the right than it does on the left. So think of the screenshot as a grid, and if you placed a pencil or a ruler going horizontally or going vertically, which lines go further down than other ones? So in this case, it's not an even triangle, because I can see that if I put a pencil this way, this one keeps sloping up down that way. And then some of the roof goes over here. Before I keep going with the house, I could keep going with the house right now, but it could start growing and covering the whole page. So like I said, I'm going to fill in some of those other major lines. So I'm going to do a sidewalk line, another sidewalk line, then we've got the truck, and then the wheels are kind of prominent on the truck, so I'm going to add those in. And when you're doing these drawings, definitely start with pencil. Try to draw lightly so that if you don't like the way that you put a line down, you can just erase it. And on the matter of changing your drawing and changing lines, erasing things, if, let's say you drew a curve and you didn't like it, and then you thought that it needs to be bigger or it was too bumpy on one side, before you erase that line, draw your improvement and then erase the old one. Because the 101 of drawing classes is that if you erase a mistake before you fix it, you're going to keep making the same mistake. Maybe it's your hand or maybe it's your eye that wants it to be that original way, but you'll just tend to keep doing the same thing over and over again, and then your paper is going to be mucked up with all of these erasure marks. So if you want to make a change, you know, maybe I thought that this line should go, you know, at a more wide angle, so I'm going to draw it.
Oh, excuse me, Whitney.
Yes.
The upper camera, something happened to the upper camera and we cannot see. Oh, we are back. Yeah, we're back. We couldn't see the upper camera for a while, but now we can.
No, I'm so sorry.
Now
Okay. Okay, maybe the hole that I cut in the bottom of the box could,
maybe, yeah.
it could have slid away from the hole. So I apologize about that. But what I was just saying is that if I wanted to make this angle of where the roof is more, let me see, which way? There we go. If I wanted to make this angle roof wider, I drew this line before I erased this line so that I don't make it too close again to the mistake that I didn't like originally. So that's the tentative way to draw in your largest lines. Now let me just show you a really quick and easy way to do the greenery. I'd like to hold the pencil a little bit looser in my hand for this part, and you're almost gonna let it like float along the page and in a shaky motion. So this is an easy way to get kind of a natural look that contrasts with the lines that you've made for the architecture without spending too much time on detailing each and every little leaf. So I'm going to erase this arc that I had just done. And I'm going to do this just loose. My hand is kind of shaking and I'm dipping in a little bit further here on the tree, but then I'm going to go back out and then I'm going to go up. And then the bottom is kind of fringy. And then you can add some texture to your greenery by doing that same type of shaky, loose motion in the interior part. So start with the general outline of the greenery and then add in little curves and squiggly line bumps. And then I'm going to add my tree trunk. And then for this bush that's over in front of the house, I'm going to just lift my pencil up a little bit every here and there because that bush is really wispy. And I just want the general feel for it. So I'm looking at the image while I'm drawing these. I think that's really helpful when you're doing greenery, is to not look at your paper and what you're doing, to just kind of focus on the outline and the texture that you're seeing in the image and just trust your hand to kind of do it. Maybe glance over every like 3 or 4 seconds to see if it's doing okay. And then I'm going to add in these kind of triangular bushes. And then I need to add this little window up here. And I'll add a windshield to the truck. And it's got kind of a triangle window here. And then this front bush. Actually, before I do the front bush, I'm going to do the front door and its awning. I'm going to go up. That one a little too high. Before I erase that, since it went too high, I'm going to add in my new curve and then erase the top. Then I'm going to do this awning. And I think that you guys get the picture. I don't want to spend any more time on the demo because I want to do some discussion, but please look back at the other images that were in the slideshow of the previous examples that I've made if you're looking for kind of the step-by-step a little bit more. And I'll just show you one last thing before we get to the discussion, and that's just the difference that it makes to have pencil versus marker. So right now on the screen, you can probably see the lines a little bit, but once I add that marker, it's just so much starker and clear, and it adds like a professional look to it. So those are the basic tenets of doing your drawing. Major lines first, loose hand and look at the image for your greenery. And then I'm not going to go through and do details right now, but work your way from large to small. I would say spend 2 minutes on your initial sketch of the major lines, then spend 5 minutes going back through and adding the other important structural like identity elements, like the shape of the building and what other metadata elements you might want. If you want to put a map in the corner, go ahead and put that in during like your second 5 minutes. And then I would say spend like 10 minutes doing little details. And that's a good kind of pace to try and set for yourself. If you only want to spend half an hour on this activity, I mean, you can spend as much time on it as you want, but if you want to try and keep it under half an hour, I would say 2, 5, 10 for big, medium, and then small details. Okay, let me get back to you guys. All right, so I'm going to share my screen again for a moment just so you can see the discussion questions, but then we'll come back and do the gallery view for some conversation. And I will probably be finishing this drawing later and putting it in a separate YouTube video, and I'll put that link in here. So if you want to see how this drawing evolved, you can come back to I'll send you guys the recording information and the slide deck after the fact. Let's go into. Okay, and there is the steps typed out for you to look at. So if you want to give those a read through before you try it yourself, you can. Okay, so discussion questions. I'll read them out and then we'll go back to the gallery view. What benefits and limitations do you think come with doing a landscape drawing or painting based on a Google Maps Street View capture? What does the virtual mediation add and take away from viewing a landscape? And did anything that you saw included in a Street View capture from today or something that you've seen in a Street View capture in the past surprise you? And then I'll just show the other two questions as well, and then you guys can comment on any of the questions that you want. So the other ones are, how does Street View and Google Maps mediate how someone might perceive a business, such as a restaurant? I kind of touched on that before when I was giving the demo. So if you want to say how it might impact someone's perception of any other type of entity or place, go for it. And what purposes can you think of that businesses, researchers, government, or individuals might have for using the data available through Street View? Okay, so I'm gonna stop the share. And you could click on gallery view again. I think that'd be good.
Should we talk about the questions now?
Yes, yes. So you could talk about any of the questions that resonate with you.
No, I think I never thought of the Google Maps view as as a commercial for a business establishment. But it's nothing better, right? If the camera goes by, if you have a restaurant and you have the full image of the restaurant in the Google map for the whole world to see, it's an enormous advertising free, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was an interesting aspect of it, and I haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
Though arguably the perception of that, say that restaurant, as Whitney, you were saying, if it's obscured in any way, if there are people out in front and you don't identify with them, all the bias that might come with if it's a rainy day, it's dark, or if it's bright sunlight, all kinds of things that might influence your perception of that business, or there's a broken down car, that whole broken window argument.
Yeah, the broken windows theory. Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
I could see, I hadn't thought about it myself, so I appreciate this. I could see how that could influence your perception of the neighborhood. If it happened to be a windy day and there's litter everywhere, you might think to yourself, no. Or you might think to yourself, oh, I want to try.
Right, yeah.
That's all that's the personal stuff that comes up, reacting.
And I think if you're looking for a house, for example, in a city that you are not yet familiar with, if you see if the weather is gray and the litter that was brought in because of the wind, you might really, like Sue said, very biased, negatively biased, right? And yet the contrary may happen too, much better than what it really is. So I think we do have to be very aware of this digital mediation and what it means for us, right? It's just one kind of information, but it's not an entirely real information.
Right. It was a capture at a certain moment in time that has certain implications because of what clues and evidence it gives and what things the stories it doesn't tell. Because I also think about how, let's keep going with the restaurant example. Let's say someone opens a new restaurant and someone goes to Google Maps to get a feel for it before going to see it in person. And if the most recent capture for that location was 3 or 4 years ago and the building was completely different, maybe it was in disrepair, or maybe it was a completely different structure and things have been rebuilt, then someone might not trust other information sources if they rely too heavily on an assumption that Google Street View is just what things are, not necessarily how they were or could have been however many years ago the capture was done. And checking on that date and figuring out how long ago the capture was done and how that might impact the perception of that place.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Sophia and Trishni are already still here, but would you like to, do you have any things you'd like to say about these questions?
I was thinking along the same lines. Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I was thinking the same thing, like in terms of like, you know, especially in New Jersey, like housing and renting is so expensive. So if someone is looking for a place and you're just looking on Google Street and you see that you might not think it's an old image and you get this. So it's like you were saying, it's a biased perception.
And it can go either way, right? It can look better than the reality, but it can also, and I actually, before Whitney brought to my attention, I wasn't aware of this timeline function of Google Maps.
Which is by no means perfect, but very handy.
But it's an interesting information, like your example of the windmills in your parents' neighborhood is one very interesting example. But depending on what part of the globe, I think the newest view may be 5 years old, and like Trishni said, you know, it may bias you, right? Because now, or maybe Whitney said, it might have been renewed and renovated and might look something very different.
Right. Yeah. If you were going to, you know, an interview or you had some appointment at some type of office for a meeting or something, and you look it up on Street View in advance, you know, if it's in a highly developing city, it could be a totally different building than what you were expecting and looking for if you rely too much on the captures without realizing when they're from. Yeah.
I'm curious, in your doing your research, did you find that Google, when you showed the screenshot of, or the website where they were indicating where they were planning to capture, do they always capture in the I'm going to air quote, the best season? Say, do you know if there's anything about how do they always try summer or spring? Do they have their own parameters about how they present? They're making choices to present this information. Like there's the snowmobile, but it'd be interesting to see a street view that actually was taken with the snowmobile. I wonder how one would find that.
Yeah, I haven't found them yet, and I do think that they tend to go in nicer months, but I haven't found any documentation about it. That's just an observation based off of all the captures in, you know, New England area that does have winters that I've explored. But I'll look into if they have written kind of reasons about why they go certain places at certain times, if there is a strategy behind that. And I pointed out the trolley museum ones, but I didn't give any examples of the snowmobile. I hadn't found some. So I will look for that. And if I find some, I'll send that to you.
Okay, sorry, I hit my video and this looks really weird. Yeah, I was curious. It might just be that the equipment is delicate enough that it can't tolerate harsh weather. You know, I wonder if there are hurricane images, street view, like, do they ever put this on a boat? You know, a barge. I've seen the backpack fellow. I've seen a fellow in the backpack, interestingly enough, but it was quite interesting. It was like, what is going on? And then recognizing that he was just walking down a sidewalk and doing street view, and that was in Chicago. But I hadn't thought about how, especially in the United States or North America, how all-encompassing they're trying to be.
So Sue, when you saw the guy with a backpack in Chicago, was that hard to reach type of street, or he was just walking on a regular street?
He was just walking on a regular street. Now, I don't know if there was no way for me to know exactly if the equipment was turned on. He was
Right,
simply
right.
walking, and I saw him and understood what I was seeing. Now, he may have been looking to walk down alleyways or gangways between buildings and doing that smaller space stuff, but he
Or in a
was
public park
on,
or something.
right, and he was not far from a park. Actually, he was only 2 blocks away from a park, and he was between a park and a large cemetery. So he could have been, doing, I hadn't thought about it. It was just like, oh,
Yeah.
recognizing what I was seeing, not
Very cool.
not thinking about it any further than that. So cool. It's very interesting.
And anyone with a Google account can submit their own 360-degree photographs to be added to Google Street View with those little blue dots that I talked about on the maps. So that's something that I realized that I need to start doing more often. But yeah, if that's something that you guys want to explore, then feel free to experiment with it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So,
Trish,
Sophia,
so-
are you still there? Would you like to say something?
Yeah, I was thinking about like far north cities of Canada and Russia
Uh-huh.
for like snowmobile, because there's cities in Russia that like has minus temperatures and
Right.
snow pretty much all the year. So it's
Yeah, so
really
it's
hard
not
to
all year,
like
right.
do photos in summer. And also like my city looks always rainy for some reason, even though we have like long summer.
Where
Do
is
you
your city?
Your city and
Kharkiv in Ukraine.
Oh, Kiev?
Kharkiv.
Oh, Krakow.
Krakow. Okay.
Yeah. And it's
if you
really strange because there's some water on the camera and you have some places obscured.
can you
because of
show
the
us
water.
if you want, we can share, or you can share your screen and show us a little exploration of an address near where you live, if you would like.
Are you in Ukraine right now, Sophia?
No.
Do you want to share your screen with us, or would you rather
Oh, I
skip?
can share screen, yeah.
Okay.
It will be easier. So there's like maybe one of the main places, and here here's a little dot and it's obscured, and I think it's really water, and there's also because there's nothing here, it's just a fountain and some trees. It's not
Right.
like
Yeah.
yeah, and it's always rainy or like cloudy, and here's also obscured place.
Yes. If you get closer to that, does it stay obscured, or is it just from one angle? Oh, yeah.
Is this
Oh,
like
this
a
one gets
municipal?
better, but still some places over here. Yeah.
Is this a municipal building, a government building, Sophia?
It's a theater, actually. It's
Theater.
opera and theater
Oh, wow.
building. It's very like strange architecture because they decided to make it like different from all that we have, and it's.
Have you attended an event there before?
Yeah, I saw ballet. I think it was Swan Lake over here. Yeah, it's not very, but like it's kind of old.
Okay. It looks like there is the option of doing the time machine up in the corner. I wonder, maybe just the signs would change on the outside of the building if you went to a different year for this one.
So when you first say, like Sophia honed in on her hometown, the view that we see is the most recent, or it's kind of random?
This one for some reason shows like 211, even though we have 215. You know.
To see the 211 one, click
This is
above
211.
211 on the little box that's in the top left. Yes, click there and then it will start
Yes,
making
this is
that
211.
large. Oh yeah, it's all fuzzed.
Yeah, and we don't have like lighters here.
Right, right.
Yeah, 215 had some like renovations.
Interesting.
I think it's also interesting that they scrubbed the faces on those banners. On the
Yes.
So that's probably, you know, the face recognition software just did that. It wasn't like someone went in and decided by hand that those should be blurred.
It's interesting because the lower face is not obscured, but it's the one with Stas up at the fourth one to the, well, in the middle.
Yeah.
Face
With a
is
big face,
obscured.
right? With
Yeah.
a big face.
And then
Yes,
a
this
few
one,
over,
maybe
but
it's-
that one is not obscured.
Yeah,
That's
that's interesting.
This one
interesting.
is black and white. Maybe they decided that no person would look like that, like pale
Right.
white.
Yeah.
Maybe the computer is not registering it as
Yeah.
a human face that's alive. But
That's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
There's fountain over here. They like did a renovation for this too.
And this is a municipal. Oh, look, it's summer. The
Ooh,
previous
It's
one.
not really summer, but probably.
It's always like gray like this, Sophia.
Not really. That was we're talking about because it's always look like it's autumn in Google Maps for some reason in my city.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's nice.
Very nice. Well, thank you for the tour.
yes. Trishni, do you want to give us a brief tour of somewhere that interests you or that you live near?
I was actually trying to find where my parents live in Mauritius, but I don't think Google Street has been there.
Oh,
It's an island southeast to Africa.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you guys can. Maybe I couldn't find it. I'm very new to this, but
do you want us to help you look for it or do you want to screen share and we could speak as you look?
let me see if I can. I think I was trying to. I think I'm on the satellite right now.
Okay, the satellite map.
Yeah, I think I tried the Google Street, but I don't think it has. I didn't see the little moving icon. The
little yellow guy.
yeah. So I think it hasn't been there.
Mm.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, I could see my parents' street view.
Maybe some other location that it would have it. We could look to see.
That might take me a while. I don't want to take time off.
That's fine. So you came from Mauritius to study here at Rutgers or work at Rutgers?
No, I came here to do my PhD at Indiana University Bloomington, and then I got a postdoc at Rutgers.
Oh, I see. What field are you in?
I did my PhD in health behavior, and yes, and now I'm doing research related to diet and cancer prevention and control.
So you're with the medical school or the Division of Life Science?
I'm with the population science division. Yeah.
Interesting.
Wonderful.
And how about you, Sophia? You said you're a student, right?
Yeah, I'm doing double major in computer science and math. Bachelor's.
Oh, you're busy. Sounds busy.
Well,
Everybody is busy.
Yeah. Do any of you want to stay on and try and find a building that you want to do and get some advice from me on kind of where to start? Or do you think that you've had enough for tonight?
Yeah,
I will.
Yeah.
Sorry, Kaio. I was just going to say, I'm going to thank you very much because
Okay.
this has been very enlightening. I've learned a lot
Okay,
in this,
great.
but I'm not going to stay with you any further. I still haven't had dinner, so I'm going to go do that.
Well,
but
thank you for coming, Sue.
yes, and I appreciate it very much. So thank you for the presentation, and everyone have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so maybe we should call it a day, Whitney, but we had a nice conversation, I thought.
Yeah, and if you guys want to, you know, have any reflections that you want to email me, I'm willing and very happy to continue the conversation in that mode. And let me just share my screen for another moment and show you.
And Whitney, would you like to speak about the survey, the post survey?
Yes, that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So here at the end of the presentation, so I'm going to send out this slide deck right away. And I'll post this URL in the chat right now.